All right, so CRUD with Mongoose. And where am I going to be testing all of this? In the terminal right here, or in Postman, even better. This is where I'm going to be testing my backend. And when I was talking about deprecation errors, this is what I'm talking about. It's telling us something else is also, we need to use create indexes, which is this one. So I must have set it wrong. I'll set it to true. The database will refresh, or the server will, and now I'm not getting this deprecation warning. So that's what you see when you start using functionality that it needs some extra configuration for. You'll get this error. Then you'll have to add something to this object. And it says use create indexes, which is actually the name of the configuration. All right, so first we'll do our get all, our get one, and our post, which is also known as an insert. So let's write the route. Maret, could you help me write the route, the endpoint? And we're not going to use the .route syntax. We're just going to name each one separately. So this is the get request for all. Drink router, get, and what would the endpoint be? Just the /. And what's the second argument? And next. Cool. So the routes work the same, right? We're setting this up with Express. They don't look any different than when we were using a fake database. Now what happens on the inside is where all this is new. So I'll just be going over this, and please let me know if you have questions. So once we're inside of the routes, we have to use the model for any sort of database querying, addition, deletion, updating. This is the variable we're using. It is our model. It references everything that's been saved as a drink. So with a .get, we can use a simple method called drink.find. Now this is not an array method. It is an array method, .find is, but drink is not an array. Drink's an object. So .find is a Mongoose method. All of these that we're using on the drink variable, these are Mongoose methods. And I would, again, uppercase the model name, even though the file names are all lowercase. So this is easy to see in this document. So the find method can be given arguments, but if given none, it will go and return every single drink object it finds. And what it will bring back is one of two things in the form of a callback function. The first thing that a query to the database will always bring back first, if it occurred, is an error. Because Node, you want to handle your errors first. It doesn't make sense to work with your data if it didn't come back in the first place. So we're always going to check for an error first. If an error didn't come back, then it's going to send back everything from the request. The .find will return the entire array of all drinks. If we had 10,000 drinks, it would return an array with 10,000 objects. If there is one drink, it would still return an array with a single object. So we always get an array, and when it comes back, we need to handle the error. So the first thing we'll do is ask, was there an error in this process? Now, what is the server status code we covered that means it was a server error? 500. So we set the response status to 500, and then we say return res.send the error. Even though res.send ends the server process, why am I saying return here? Yeah, to end the function itself. Like this will send a response, but if I don't say return, it's going to keep reading. It's still JavaScript. It's going to read the rest of the function, and before it actually ends the server process. So we want to say return. This is the end of the line if this happens. But if the error doesn't occur, great. That means we got our drinks as expected. So we'll return a successful status of 200 and send the drinks. And that is our get all. Now there are no drinks in my database yet. So can I do a get request to this endpoint and have it work? Yes, we can. But what is it going to send if there is nothing in the database, but it is working? Empty array. So we're going to send a get request. Notice Morgan gave me the log. I got a get request to /drinks, and you got back an empty array. That means your database is connected, your model and your route is working. There's just no items in the database yet. So it wouldn't make sense, I guess, to do get one yet, because we can't really test it until we have something to get one of. So we'll go to post next, but one more thing on this get request, on the find method. All of these methods can take filtering criteria as a first argument. We've been leaving it out, but if I put an object in here and then the callback function, I can give key value pairs in here to say find drinks that only match this. So I could say find drinks that only have, for example, has alcohol set to true. So has alcohol true. And now it will still return an array of drinks, but only the ones that have has alcohol set to true. And all methods can do this. We can add as many things to this object as we'd like, and it will filter the search for us. So this is probably somewhere where you'd say something like rec.query.hasAlcohol. You know, the user sent you a query to say, I only want to find alcoholic drinks. This is all we'd have to do on our find method to turn it into something that can filter our database. Pretty nice. There's our whole array.filter right there. But we want to get all, so we're not going to do that here. Any questions on get before we go to post? Great. Well, the route for this is going to look very similar. What is the difference between this route and this route? Yeah, the only difference is going to be this word. So drink router.post, same endpoint, same callback function, but new API logic here. When the user sends a post request, where is their object going to be inside of the request object? rec.body. That is their object that they want added to the database. So what we need to do is we need to make a new drink object out of the request body. So we'll do that as close to English as we can. We'll say const new drink equals a new drink using our model here, and passing into it what to create this model from, the request body. This will take in the user's object, create the drink object, which adds the ID and the version number, and then stores it in this object. Does it save it in the database? No, this gets it ready to save in the database. The next line, this is still a Mongoose object. New drink is just like the drink word. So we're going to say new drink dot save and tell it to actually save this in the database. Now dot save is a querying method, just like dot find. So what is it going to come back with? An error, or yeah, the saved drink, the new drink that was just saved to the database. I'll call it saved drink. Now we're in Node, we're writing a backend, so what is conventionally the first thing we have to do? Handle the error. Was there an error? No? Well, if there was, set the status to that and return the error. Now on the front end, when you do an Axios request, where would you actually see this error? In the console, but what would you have to console log to see this error, and where? What part of the Axios request receives an error if one occurs? The catch. So if we send an error object back, Axios is good enough at seeing that being coming in as the response, like, well, that's an error object. This is not a resolve. This is a reject. Give it to the dot catch so they can handle their error. So that's great. That's already built into Axios for us. If we send an error, the dot then will not receive a response. The dot catch will receive this error. But if there was no error, we have the same drink, so we're going to return a successful addition status, which is, if anyone knows, 201, and then we'll send back the saved drink. Now we can test our post and our get, and that's exactly what you should do at this point. Don't keep building until we know what's already built works. So we're going to change this to a post. And where would I look to know what keys are required and what they should look like and their data types and all that? What kind of object do I have to send? How do I know what it should look like? The model. I already defined what it should look like. It needs to have a name and it has alcohol. Ingredients will be defaulted to an empty array, so I don't need to include that. Image URL will also default to an empty string if I don't give one. So really, I just need name and whether it has alcohol. So let's start with that. Name, martini. And I'm doing it uppercase, realize, to see if the response is actually saved as a lowercase string. And the has alcohol, it's set to true. Okay, I'll send the post request. It comes back. There we go. Ingredients defaulted to an empty array. Image URL defaulted to an empty string. The save or creating the new item gave me an ID and a version, and then my data was saved in the appropriate fields. Woohoo!
So by saying lowercase, it actually converts it to lowercase?
Yep, it converts the text to lowercase before it saves it. Because now, let's say I accidentally try to send a duplicate entry of martini. If I send this now, Mongo error, duplicate key error collection, drinks.drinks, duplicate key, martini. It won't let you resave it. If I do a get request now, I'll still only have one drink in my database. So we're providing structure. And again, without this structure, without Mongoose, you can send whatever you want to MongoDB and it will save it just fine. But that gives you no consistency once that data gets to a front end and you have to loop over it and do some logic. So we need this. We need this setup. Let's post one more. This time, let's give it some ingredients. We'll say whiskey sour has alcohol. The ingredients is an array of alcohol, or we'll say whiskey and sour and soda water. Maybe a cherry. Okay, and post. Cool, and this one came with our array. Empty image URL still, because we didn't give one, but the key is included. And I use defaults on almost everything because I don't want an instance where I'm trying to use a property of an object and one thing in my database just happens to not have that and it breaks my whole app. So I use a lot of defaults if they're not required, just so my objects show up with everything they can have. I can always do a put request and update this later, or add more ingredients or remove ingredients. All right, so now with this, we can do our get all leading up to our get one, our first time using parameters with Mongoose. Is there any questions on the post request? Well, this is like, you mean in here or over here? Yeah, this is me now testing this. I want to see if can I send a post request and have this object actually saved on my hard drive in the database. I can, yeah, I can do. We'll be doing a delete request and put request as well. But the point of this now is the array isn't stored here; it's stored on a hard drive. So you turn off your computer, come back tomorrow, it's still there. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, wait, this is permanent. Yes. I can stop my server, start it back up. And notice we're getting these nice logs. When I set up my first post request of Martini, it was 201. But then why did I get a 500 error on my second post request? Try to duplicate. So when it went to newdrink.save, it went to query the database. Notice there was already a Martini entry and threw an error instead of a saved drink. So we got a 500 status code because of that error, and then it sent the error, and we saw that in Postman saying, duplicate entry, Martini. Great, get one. Still going to be drinkrouter.get, but what will be the endpoint? /:_ID. We got to include the colon, or else it will just read it as a literal endpoint, not as a dynamic parameter endpoint. It still receives rec, res, and next. Now, when the user sends an ID in the endpoint, if I want to console log the endpoint, what would I have to write in here? How do I get access? Yeah, rec.params is the object, and it will create an underscore ID. If this was star power, what would this change to? Rec.params to star power, yeah. All it means is it's whatever they put after the / here. So I'll put hello world. And now we're going to console log rec.params.starPower and send this get one request. And there's my hello world. I sent that as the argument. This received it as a parameter, called it star power, put it in this object, and now I'm seeing the text I sent on the endpoint. Now it's ID, so we're going to be nice to ourselves. All right, if you were the writer of Mongoose and you had to create a method that would find one thing from a database, what would you call that method? Well, find is for everything. Or if you only wanted to find one. Find one. So find one, we'll find what data type you think this will return, always. Object, where find will always return an array, because there could always be more. But find one is being, no, I need a single resource. So we have to give it a filtering object. We have to tell it which one to find and by what information. So we're going to find one that has the ID equal to the one passed in by the user. And then it will still come back with either an error or the found drink. All right, so here's our little filtering object to say find the one that has an ID equal to the one the user sent us in the request parameters. Same process applies afterwards. If there's an error, set the status of 500, return res.send the error. But if there wasn't an error, this was a successful get one. So what is the status I would use? 200. Get request successful is 200, whether it's get one or get all. And then we .send our found drink. Now our database has 2 drinks in it right now. We have the martini and the whiskey sour. If we wanted just the sour, we could pull the ID, paste it after the drinks as a new part of the endpoint. This will become the request parameter, and we're going to tell our model to go find one that has this ID. And we get back just the whiskey sour as an object. So response.data is the object we requested. And look at this, look how helpful that is from Morgan. /drink / here is the actual ID number that was requested. Matches perfectly to our image or ID in the object here. Any questions with the get one and using request parameters? So we've got our get all, our get one, and our post. And the 3 Mongoose methods we've used so far, what are they? Find one, and save. So find for finding a collection, find one for finding a resource out of a collection, and .save to save a new item to a collection. So we got 2 more to look for because we are missing 2 routes. What are those? Delete one and update one. So we got put, we've got delete. We gotta do both. Yeah, these are actual Mongoose methods. Save, find one, find, if that's what you're saying. Yeah. And we know they're Mongoose methods because they are methods of the Mongoose model object. So a function inside of an object is a method. Since this object's from Mongoose, this is a Mongoose method. Okay. Delete one. Well, we had to find one if we had to find one. If you were writing Mongoose and you needed to be able to delete one, what would you call it? I wish, no. Because how does it know which one to delete? So what if we could say find one and delete? So it's closer to that. Drink router dot delete. The endpoint will be what again? You need the ID of the one to delete. And the method is drink dot find one and there's a couple here. You're going to want to use remove. Find one and delete is deprecated. And you'll know because as soon as you use it, you'll see a little error down here telling you. Well, just like find one, it needs to be told which one to find. Well, the ID is the easiest way. So the first argument will be the filtering object and say find one whose ID is equal to the parameter's ID. Then come back with an error or the deleted drink. It's very interesting. What Mongoose will send back on a delete request, if it's successful, is actually it will send you the object it just deleted from the database. And now you don't need to use this at all. The user doesn't need to know about it. They already know the ID they requested, so they can update their state just fine. But you can also use this object in the message or something, you know, successfully deleted the drink's name and use this object for that. Let's handle our error. If error, set the status and return the error. But if successful, return a successful status for delete, which we said will be 202, means request accepted. We did what you asked. And we'll dot send whatever we'd like. So we could just send the whole deleted drink object, if that's our choosing, or we could send back an object that has maybe a success boolean equal to true, and maybe a message that says successfully, oh boy, successfully deleted drink dot name. And then they get a message that says successfully deleted martini or successfully deleted whiskey sour. So we're using the object, we're not sending the whole thing. We could if we wanted to. So we don't really need the success true. Maybe we'd say something more like drink. So we send the whole object in case they want to see it, and we're also sending a message letting them know it was deleted. It's really up to you what you want your response to be. What data might you want to show to the user? Maybe you'd like a little alert to pop up that says this. Well, you already have the string. All you have to do now is in your .then of your Axios request is say alert response.data.message, and that shows up to the user directly from your server. And we'll get into all that, of course, with at least with user authentication. Any questions on the delete request before we test it? If this .send is looking a little bit too large, I think it is, we can. Cool. Are you finding this easier to look at or harder to look at than the vanilla JavaScript versions we did with the fake database? It's less to write for sure. It's less logic to work out. It's all just memorizing the syntax. What's the method? What does it need? And when it comes back, how do you handle either eventuality? Handle the error, handle the response. Well, we can test it. Move this over. And let's delete the martini. So let's do a get all of our drinks. Here's the martini. I'll grab the ID. I'll add it to the endpoint. And I'll change the method to delete. So send. Ooh, we got a fun error. But notice in my response, it worked fine, right? It sent back an object that had a .drink and a .message, just like I said I should over here. There's my drink and message. It got both. with the name. But notice what error I got in the console. Deprecation error. Find one and update and find one and delete without the use of use, find, and modify options set defaults are deprecated. Oh, that means use, find, and modify needs to be false. That was the one that needed to be false. So notice it still worked, but it said, hey, what you used or what you just used may not work in the future. It's been deprecated. So change your configuration settings so we know what you're trying to do. Yep. Yep. And I wasn't sure. So I was like, once we try it, we'll see if the error shows up. And sure enough, it let us know that if we're trying to use find one and update or find one and delete, this is what we get. Well, let's go back to post really quick so we can add our whiskey sour back in. And let's try the delete one more time to see if that error went away. Oh, duplicate key. No way, we deleted it. Or at least I thought we did. Oh, we deleted the martini. I can't re-add. Okay, we're making up drinks. Kool-Aid. It just has whiskey in it. It's a summer drink. I've had porch sits with whiskey and Kool-Aid. Okay. Let's try the delete again to see if we got rid of that error or if there's more that we need to change. I'll grab the ID. We'll go and delete it. Send. And great, it deleted it without a bunch of deprecation errors. So let's re-add our Kool-Aid and keep going. Bam. So our GET request should have whiskey sour and whiskey Kool-Aid. Yes. All the logging. Last one, what do we got to do? The put. So drink router dot put 2//:ID because it needs to know which one to update. Still receives a request, response, and next parameters. Now, if we have a find one and remove, what would be a good one for updates? Find one and update. Great. Well, find one and update is the put request method. So of course it's going to be the most complex. Because what do we need? What do we need to provide this route so it knows what to do? First, the ID. So that's going to be the same. We're going to say first, I'm going to break these all into their own line. Find one by the ID that is rec.params._ID. But what else does a put request need? The body, the object that they need to update this with, which is still rec.body, just like with post. But instead of being a new object, it's going to be a smaller object for updating the one they find by this ID. So the second argument is what are the updates you want to perform? If we just give it the object, it will perform the update just like we were doing with object.assign. So update this. This is what you should update it with. And then a funny thing about find one and update is it will send you back the outdated object unless you tell it to send you the updated one. So the third parameter, we have to say, give me the new one, true. So that way the response will be the updated version. And the last one is finally the callback function that has the error or the updated object. All right, so a little bit more going on here. And this update could be extensive. We could do quite a few operations in this second argument. There's a lot of pre-built methods called $ methods that let you interact with your database without the user even having to send a request body. And we'll go over those in time. But moving forward, we'll handle the error res.status 500, return res.send the error. There is a reason I'm breaking these up on two lines. Just be aware, that's what the error handling lesson will do, because we could still do the res.status 500.res.send the error, or .send the error. That would be fine, but we're going to change the syntax shortly, so I'm going to keep these on their own lines. There wasn't an error. return a successful addition or update status, which is 201, and send the updated drink. So quite a bit going on here, but it is in a strict order. You memorize this order, and it's not hard anymore. It's more of just like, how do I get the pieces of data to the part and the endpoint that it needs to be? So get, or put, delete, post, get one, get all. Well, in all things, we should update. I think we missed an ingredient. We'll do that in a second. First, let's give our Kool-Aid drink an image URL of the Kool-Aid man. I'm not getting paid to do this by Kool-Aid. Definitely one where he's breaking through the wall though, because it's an alcoholic drink. Save image, copy image address. There we go. And we're going to do a put request to update this drink here. So I'm going to grab the ID. I'm going to change it to put. I'm going to go into the body, and what I want to send it is just the part to update. So image URL. And I will put that in here. So I'll send the put request. What am I sending back? What will be the response? The updated drink, yeah. So I'll send, there we go. It has an image URL now, but everything else was left the same. Cool. So if what's that? Yeah, like this is still the first argument of this function. This function is this entire thing. It's the callback function to occur after the find1 and update comes back. Or we're sending this stuff to it. Once it's done, it's going to call this function and give us one of the following. And we'll look at other syntax about this as well, maybe later this week, called async await, which can make this even prettier, but you definitely want to learn it this way first.